Hello, and welcome to Postcards from a Soul and Her Human. I'm the human, Gina. This has been a very strange week. I've been going through a lot of changes, and a lot of realizations are still coming in. A lot of things that I've learned about my relationship with my ex husband. I spoke a lot in the last episode about my experience with him and really why he was the catalyst for me experiencing my spiritual awakening. Basically, what happened is the old me, the the one that idealized love and trusted that my life would unfold in a positive way, she had to die. I mean, to put it bluntly. And not in a way that caused me to lose faith in life. That's actually the opposite of what happened. Instead, the old me died, the one who idealized love, who idealized the 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 thought that life was just going to be okay, and that I really didn't have any active role in that other than accepting what came to me. And there are elements of that that are true, and really, in our most healthy state, accepting what comes to you is absolutely the way to live. It's the way to live effortlessly. It's the way to accept the things that come to you, whether they're a lesson or a blessing, which are both, of course, true. But it was different because I had not recognized myself. I was basically on this journey as a inactive contributor to my life, and I just always figured things would be okay. I didn't realize until after this relationship was over how much I could have contributed if I would have been awake. And of course, that's nobody's fault. We're awake when we awaken, and we're not awake when we're not, and we don't really know the difference when we're not. Often use the analogy of just being asleep at the wheel in my life. I didn't understand where I was going, so I just kept crashing into things. And I blamed my husband a lot of the time. I actually used that analogy in one of the last times I tried to appeal to him about what was being lost when we were falling apart. Is I said, "I feel like I've been a passenger in your car, and you've been asleep at the wheel, and I've been screaming that there's a wall ahead, you need to stop." And I felt so passionately about that it was his problem, that he was not paying attention and that we were crashing because of him. And of course, in my limited perspective at the time, it was true. I was the one who knew we were failing, and he didn't seem to care, or he didn't seem to understand or recognize that. So I did a lot of soapboxing where I was basically telling him over and over that, we're losing this relationship. I'm going to leave you if you don't pay attention. You're not giving me what I need. You're allowing this love affair to crumble, and I don't understand why you're doing it, and you need to wake up. And all of that was true. The only aspect of it that I was missing was that I was also sound asleep next to him in that car, driving into walls. I had the appearance of being awake. I was saying the right things, but I just didn't understand that I needed to say those things to me. It seems it seems really funny now, almost like a comedy, like a sitcom, like, the characters are ridiculous, and they are blaming each other for the situation they're in, and nothing ever gets accomplished or resolved. And it's funny, and the show ends, and you look forward to the next episode because you can laugh at somebody who's funny, whose lack of awareness is a source of entertainment because it's not real. However, Our lack of awareness is very real in our own lives, and it is the reason why we walk around crashing and bumping into things, not realizing why we have a headache or why this bruise is on our forehead or why our arm is broken or why we can't walk. And we really want it to be everyone else's fault. Like I was with this man for 25 years and I just was desperate for him to see that he was throwing this all away while not even recognizing for a moment that it needed to be thrown away. that, that my life would change dramatically when I woke up. When I finally realized that this was not the life for me and that I was fighting to keep something that was toxic for me. Absolutely toxic. I mean, to the point where we're talking about nearly 12 months since he's moved out, and I still have physical residual exhaustion from that relationship that drained me so completely. I was so intent on making this man see what he was destroying that I didn't understand how badly it needed to be destroyed. So I'm not saying he knew better than me, but at least he was being honest at the end anyway, that he had no intention of working on this or trying to save it in his mind. If it's done, it's done. And, I shouldn't have to do anything to try to fix it. And that was just the most infuriating, incredibly upsetting thing that could have happened because in my mind, you keep working on it and you figure it out. I had spent most of my early years in shorter relationships. I mean, I did have one long relationship with my first husband, it was almost 10 years, and I was in my 20s, so I think that was reasonable, but, I always had the instinct or maybe the inclination because of my past and my childhood and the abuse and the neglect that I experienced to just leave a relationship when it didn't feel right anymore. It was just like, you know, just leave. I mean, this isn't the right person, just go find another one. And until I met my last husband, that was my mindset, and honestly, it was well into our relationship because that's why we never got married. I didn't worry about marriage. To me, it seemed like an inconsequential statement that, you know and I do feel this way about marriage today, and I actually wrote an article about it called "A Love Perspective," is that marriage is a piece of paper, it's a contract. Yes, it's awesome that we're making these promises to each other, but in my mind, you can't put a contract on love. I mean, it can't be upheld. If somebody is not in love anymore or doesn't understand how to love, that contract doesn't mean anything. It's just a fight for us to separate. And I know that in situations, I don't mean to belittle the situations, especially with children. My ideal was just that the contract would be for financial support after the end of a love, and not that we're promising to love each other forever. Because it's in my mind, then it's just not something you can guarantee. So I always had the ideal that I'm going to be with somebody for however long it lasts, and then I'm going to move on. That's how I grow. I always had this kind of understanding that that's how life was. You keep moving through it, and change has to be a part of that in order for us to grow and evolve. We have to have things that push against us in order for us to grow. Just like exercise on the muscle. Without a weight, the muscle can't grow just by moving the arm. So that weight against it, that pressure against the muscle is what causes it to grow. And I always kind of knew this. You have to have pressure against what you think or feel or believe in order for that to evolve. So I always had an idea that when a relationship's over, it's over, you move on. But this was different. I've decided early on that I was going to look at this differently. I was going to be different. I was going to invest myself in this one because I wanted a lifelong love. So I ignored those old ideals, and I really tried to be an active member in this relationship, and I thought that I had done a good job. I was very communicative, I expressed my feelings, I would talk about anything. I mean, I'm a good communicator, it's always been easy for me. However, because of my sexual history, I had a much difficulty around sex and sensuality and getting my needs met in that department. I always wanted my partner to kind of know what I needed, and I always thought by being an open and um, engaged partner that that would be easy to detect and sense, and I guess I had this dream that I had a partner who could do that, that would kind of hear me, hear the unspoken words, and know how to take care of me, and that's what I wanted. And that's what I did for him. I always was anticipating his needs, and I was always the one who it's not good now I see when I say the words, it makes me cringe a little, but I sacrificed my own comfort and desires for his. I always did that. I thought it was the way to be a good partner and to, always create an environment where he felt loved and nurtured and seen. The only problem is I didn't cultivate that same environment for myself. So I expected him to do it. And because I did it for him, I expected he would do it for me. But that's just not how it works. And I'm laughing out of nervousness because it's just so ridiculous when I look back at it. And I'm not I'm not ashamed of what I did or who I was. I learned incredible lessons from it. So I appreciate her. And I'm referring to her as the former me because I'm not the same person. But she had an ideal that love was this beautiful connection that allowed each partner to effortlessly care for the other. And even in our busy lives and building a business together and having a regular sex life, I just believed that that was taking place. And I guess I didn't really notice until years down the road when it started to really kind of appear, kind of undeniably that that was not taking place. I mean, up until then, I mean, it was 15 years in before I realized that maybe that is not the environment that I'm in. And a lot of this was, again, me. I was basically shielding myself emotionally, at a level I didn't understand. I had been through so much as a child, and like all of us have, we all have our war stories, our battle wounds, and one of mine was sexuality. I was molested by my father. I was sexualized by older men. I was a innocent, natural young girl who didn't understand that men could have bad intentions, and I found myself in situations where I was lucky to get out, honestly. One in particular where I was sure that I was gonna be raped. Um, but I got out, and, it's funny because my spirit guides, who are a big part of my life now, and I'll talk about them more, told me recently that, think back to situations where you shouldn't have gotten out and you did. And they told me, "We were there with you, and we got you out." And I'm just so grateful for that, to know that now, but when I look back at that particular situation, it was a pretty typical one where a man was charming and seemingly had innocent intentions, and I walked into a seemingly innocent situation that turned out to be anything but. And I got out without harm because I had such an acute sense right away that there was something wrong, and I charmed my way out of that situation where basically, a man approached me to be a part of a project that was involving other people, and I'd seen this man almost every day because he worked at a place that I stopped every day, after work, and third or fourth time he asked me, I thought, let me give it a try. And I went to this place and I was the only one there and he was the only other one there. And I realized right away that I was going to be in trouble if I stayed. So I got this brilliant idea that why I had to leave immediately. And I just left. And thank God he wasn't aggressive and he let me go. But that situation was early on. I was in my early 20s before my first um, before I was in a committed relationship and or a marriage, I should say. And that was just another example of kind of being susceptible to people who have bad intentions. I know we all experience those things, but this sexuality has always been a challenge for me, and I believe now, looking back, that that was no accident. That I was meant to go through these difficult sexual experiences in order to get me to a place where I can not only accept what happened, but really grow to the point where I have completely different ideals about it. And they are unique and possibly unpopular, but um, I'm actually sharing them in an article that I'm writing right now called A Sex Perspective. And anyway, back to my last marriage is, I did have a shield around my sexuality in my heart, and I didn't realize it at the time, of course. We don't get that insight until afterwards, till the rearview mirror becomes really big. But I thought that we had a really good connection and that sexually we were good. And, the story I told it in the last episode. So, um, I'm realizing that I put myself in the situation that you know, I thought that something was happening that wasn't, that we had this great connection and this cooperative love affair. And I realized that a lot of what I went through really not inhibited that, but prohibited that. It's like until I came to terms with that, I was not going to have a healthy love sex life. It just wasn't going to happen. And I'm thankful that I was allowed to finally die, which I hate to use that word, but I think it's important for it to be striking and maybe even a little upsetting because death is what's required. We have to die in our old from our old sensibilities, our old ideals that are shrouded in our pain. Our demons become our who we are. I loved my ex-husband from my as my demons. I expected love from him as my demon, basically my egoic self who wanted relief. So I just expected that he was going to always take care of me, that he was going to always kind of know what I needed, and he was going to take care of me. I mean, I keep coming back to that insane statement. Um, when I wasn't taking care of myself, I didn't know how. So now when I look back at him, I think, well, how could he have ever taken care of me? I didn't know how to take care of me. And he was really the perfect partner for me to have. And I believe now with all of the introspection that I've done, is not only was he the perfect partner, but he was playing an important role. And that I've learned this from my spiritual work and honestly from the direct communication from my spirit guides and my higher self is that I this was a soul contract that my ex-husband and I have referred to him as a karmic soulmate, and that is absolutely correct. But more than that, we had a contract, a soul contract, that we would come together in this lifetime and heal each other or cause the healing of each other, which is basically causing the death of our old selves. Now, I have not seen evidence of this yet on his side, meaning that he is still the same person he was when we were together, seemingly completely unaware and still asleep at the wheel of his life. And I'm not blaming him for that. If I did blame him for that, I would have to hate myself for what I went through. That's not it's not possible anymore. My heart is wide open and he is in there. He is the man that caused me the catalyst for the death of the old me and the rebirth of the new me who sees him very clearly, and myself, who I was very clearly now. And all of these all of these years I expected him to take care of me, and he was unable. He was unable. I was completely incapable. And looking back on that now, it's almost like I want to go back in time and just shake myself awake, 10 years ago when this first started, and say, listen, kid, you are in a dangerous situation. You are not being cared for, and you don't understand it because you have no idea what being cared for feels like, because I've never been able to care for myself. But I can't do that, of course. So all I can do is look back and try to understand what happened. And this introspective time, it's almost 12 months now. Actually, the 25th of this month will be 1 year since he finally left my home. A year and a half since our divorce. So, I this ability to look back and to really appreciate what happened is just it's not just a gift, it is. I mean, I have the opportunity to live a completely different life now, and to have a love relationship that suits my unique, aware, elevated heart. So what I'm writing about now is basically what I believe sexuality is, or maybe was meant to be, and how different it is from what I thought it was, and how having a good sexual relationship really relies on having an intimate bond, and how most of us, married or not, in a committed relationship or not, gay, straight, non-binary, whatever your sexual preference, doesn't matter. We don't none of most of us do not have this intimate bond. And I think that this intimate bond, or lack of this intimate bond, is the reason why there's so much volatility in sexuality with partners. And I'm talking about infidelity, I'm talking about dissatisfaction in sex, I'm talking about aggressive sexual practices, I'm talking about um, the fact that a lot of younger women these days are seeking out platonic love relationships because they don't want to suffer the sexual volatility that we experience in a quote unquote love relationship, in the current paradigm of love and sex. And that, I think, truth be told, most people are desperately unsatisfied sexually because the act of sex has become the purpose of love. And I'm not talking about the relationship, the partnership part. I'm talking about when we come together sexually, the purpose of sex is intercourse and penetration and climax and orgasm and the things that make us feel good in the moment. But the truth is, and from my perspective, is that that act of sex, or that focus on intercourse, is there as our egos need to feel something, to feel this elevated pleasure, if even just for a moment. And yeah, it's wonderful. Orgasm is incredible. But I believe that the current state of the love sex paradigm is a very skewed one and twisted one, and that we seek out sex with somebody we want to love, or we love someone, we have sex with them, but we don't understand what love and intimacy is. So it's always a missed opportunity, and then sex becomes just an act or a means to relieve ourselves or to feel this physical pleasure. And for me anyway, I realized that sex is no longer of any interest to me. And yeah, I'm nearly 60 and I've been through menopause, so probably not all that surprising. However, what I do want is sexuality and intimacy, and to the level I've never experienced before. And this is something that I've been kind of gleaning from my spiritual work, from my introspection, from my understanding of what our divine body is. Our divine body being our energetic selves, our soul, however you want to refer to it. It is the energy that runs this body. So if you are spiritually aware or even spiritually adjacent and you have an understanding or awareness of spirituality, but not really an in depth experience, we are two beings. We are a physical body in the 3D world with the ability to move around and see and smell and feel and experience pleasure. And we're also an energetic body or a light being that is bodiless when it's not in this realm, and we that is our energy, that is our radiance, that is our life force, our soul. And I believe that the current sex love paradigm is completely ignores this light being, that it doesn't connect. So sex becomes superficial. And because it's superficial, it is not satisfying. I'm not saying it isn't in the moment. Of course it is. Orgasm is amazing, but it's not satisfying. In my experience, and I've come to terms with this with sex throughout my life, not just because of the abuse or the discomfort with it or the obviously horrible experience of a 25-year relationship that ended because the sex wasn't enough. But it's also something that I realize I've been missing throughout all of my sexual encounters, which is intimacy, is that deep connection with a man or a person, whomever you are, that transcends the physical desire, that transcends our ideal of sex. And when we don't have that intimate bond with our love partner, that sexuality isn't attainable. You can't reach it. So, in our state of unconsciousness or our need for relief and gratification from external sources, we just engage in sex and hope that it's intimate. We hope that it means that it's love, and we don't understand that it has nothing to do with love. And that, especially women, and I know there are men too, we engage in sex as a way to feel close to our partner, as a way to feel that intimacy. But that intimacy is not shared through sex. It has nothing to do with sex. That intimacy has to be created before sex. So when we have sex without that intimate bond, and I'm talking about a love bond that is deeper than the body, a love bond that goes all the way through to our energetic core, a love bond that is only possible when two people are love themselves. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? Just love yourself. But most of us can't do that. We don't know that we don't love ourselves. And because we're projecting out into the world all of our ideals about our our well-being, we don't look at ourselves and we don't realize that we hold the key, to the chains that keep us completely helpless and searching externally for relief. So my point is this: all these years with this my ex-husband and all of the sex that we shared had no purpose other than for physical release, for gratification. And I know that's not 100% true with all love affairs. I'm sure that the degrees will vary with everybody, but my point is that if we don't match vibrationally, if we're not if we and I'll put it as simply as I can, if we don't love ourselves, we can't love someone else, and if we don't love each other, we cannot be intimate. we can't have an intimate bond. And the best example of this I can honestly share is the animal kingdom. Animals procreate, they don't have sex. They procreate when instinct tells them it's time. But their intimacy is something completely different. It is not humping each other, which, forgive me, but that's the most declarative way I can put that. They are the love bond is the intimacy is created by their loyalty and love for each other, by their commitment to care for each other, to protect each other. And sex is just a means to create babies. Now, I don't want to oversimplify humanity because we have a different brain, and our brain allows us all these different experiences and allows us sensibilities and to reason and to explore and to be human. Yeah, that's awesome. But it also comes with a big fucking ego. Excuse me, but I get mad at my ego sometimes because it is so prevalent. It is such a prolific part of our being that we don't when we don't identify it as that, as this kind of this part of us that wants physical comfort. It wants to be comfortable physically and it wants to be pleased. And it wants treasures and trophies and it wants this physical world to be all that matters. So sex to the ego is a means to an end. It gives me physical gratification and it gives me a sense or a belief that is intimate love. It's just not. Intimate love is something that's cultivated through getting to know someone and learning to love them. And you cannot, let me repeat this, you cannot love someone else unless you love yourself. You can't. You can convince yourself of that. You can go throughout your life believing that if you want, but it's not true. So instead of an intimate bond creating a sexual experience that is now cosmic, beyond our physical bodies, but from our core beings, which is where our inner radiance, our divinity, our vastness lies, we're not being intimate. So, intimacy is one thing and sex is another. And rarely the two have met, in my opinion, at least in my experience. So, what I've found out here is that for me, sex is off the table. It is something that has always made me uncomfortable. It has been unsatisfying. I've often felt compromised in order to please someone else. No fault of my sexual partners. None of their fault. This is all me. Giving in a way that I felt was connecting and allowing me to feel loved, and it just doesn't work that way. So for me, I guess the word that keeps coming up, the term is asexual. I don't have a desire for sex. And I don't know that I ever will again unless I can have an intimate bond and then sex is going to look a lot different. And I guess the word sex is not really appropriate in my mind for that. It's sexuality, it's sensuality. It's a cosmic connection that allows the transcendence of the physical need for release. It may very well include our sex parts. I don't know yet. But I believe that this cosmic sexuality or sensuality is now attainable for me as a self-aware, spiritually awoken person, a spiritually awake person, whatever the proper way to say that is. And but it's only possible if I have my energetic match. A man who is also spiritually awakened. What's the right way to say that? I don't know. A man who loves himself. Because if he loves himself, his vibrational frequency will be higher than when he didn't. because when we don't love ourselves, our energy is heavy. It is the frequency of our energy is lower, like a record in slow motion. It's not crisp and clear and beautiful. Ah, like a voice free to soar. It is completely different animal. So when we're struggling in the mud of our life, clawing for someone else to be responsible for our pain, we are in those lower vibrational emotional states. When we feel that way, we don't love ourselves, because when we love ourselves, we understand that that is all a self-imposed purgatory. That self-love frees us from need. And then sex doesn't become a means to be relieved, a means for our physical needs to be met. It becomes an ethereal experience. And no, I have not experienced it yet. But the emanations that I'm receiving from the spirit world, which I have a very, very strong connection and a very open conversation on a daily basis with my spirit team, that's where this is coming from. This understanding that there's more. Because how would I know that? I've never experienced it, but I know it. That love is not complete without intimacy. And that's why we cheat. That's why we seek out platonic relationships out of fear that we're going to be hurt again. That's why we give up on love. I've heard celebrities on talk shows talk about this lately a lot. I no longer date. I'm a beautiful, famous person, and I understand there's a whole nother issue with finding somebody real in that environment. But these young, vital women are saying, I'm done with love. I can't find an emotional connection with someone, and I'm not interested otherwise. Why do you think this is happening? This whole subculture of people turning towards something more substantive than just an ideal of love that includes sex. That, okay, are you happy? I guess I'm happy too. And you go away feeling drained and empty. Sex has been a source of pain and disappointment throughout my entire life. I mean, this last one was a friggin' doozy. But how can I be mad? This is my life's work. I mean, I was put here to go through these incredibly complex and disappointing and painful experiences so I can learn these lessons. That's why I'm here and why I'm on this microphone, which I never expected to be, and writing these articles that are flowing through me like water. So, no, I don't blame my ex-husband. I don't blame the abuse. I don't blame my parent. I don't blame anyone. I've been liberated from a construct, a way of thinking that is embraced by everyone on every in every state, in every country in the world. That sex is just an integral part of love, and it's just accepted that you'd share that. Even though most of the time, and I'm going to reach out and say most people feel that it's unsatisfying most of the time, especially after the thrill of a new relationship is over and we are left with each other. Now, maybe I'm having sex to please you, or maybe I don't want to, but I'm going to do it because I feel like I need to, or it's a chore, or I want to keep exploring to find something satisfying. And you know what? It's not with you. I'm going to go find somebody else. And yeah, I thought I loved you, but obviously I'm not sexually pleased, so I'm going to go find someone else. I mean, come on. It is like a nightmare. It is just, it is a, I think it's an old tradition that needs to change. And that sexuality is changing as women and men are growing, are being born into this world without this traditional weight, without this karmic weight of having to follow an ideal that someone else created fucking millions of years ago, hundreds of years, thousands, whatever. And that these young people are coming through now with these totally different ideas. I mean, I read an article a few months ago about this new movement of young women having families with their friends, their female friends, their heterosexual female friends. And I found this article at the time where I decided that I'm not going to be sexual anymore. It's unsatisfying. That wasn't an accident. That was the spirit world turning me in this direction, saying it's okay to feel differently, to embrace it. You are an awakened individual. My energy is elevated to the point now where I don't feel the need to follow these old ideas and to stand out as a retractor. Who fucking cares? This is my life. I got to live it the way is right for me. So no, the next man that comes into my life, sex is off the table, at least in the beginning. I'm not going to date 3, 4, 5 times and then we have sex and now we're in love. No. Hell no. I want to get to know this man and know that he loves himself. And I'll know that he loves himself because our vibrational energy will match. This will be a magnetic draw. It will not have to be faked or promoted or cajoled. It will be a magnetic draw, an electricity between us that will develop as we learn to know each other. That electricity will guide us to our sexuality. And that sexuality will only manifest physically once that intimate bond is generated. I just know this. I don't know it with my brain because my brain doesn't have the capacity to even understand this. My brain is a passenger at this point in my life. It is there for a resource, for research, for contemplation, for understanding things, for putting things into action. But my brain is now not the host, but a guest. My solar plexus, my gut, my intuition now drives this vehicle. And she is not afraid to say what she thinks or to live the way that is right for her. And she desperately wants to share this with you as just a means for you to maybe look at your own situation or your own ideals and decide how you feel about them. I'm not trying to change your mind. I just want you to know that there's more out there, that there's something different out there. And that if we want more satisfying love and even sex, we just need to love ourselves. I know that sounds really easy. And when you get to a certain point, it is. But you first have to face the life that you're leading first. Pull it apart, examine it, and you have to be honest with yourself about what's working and what isn't. And then once you get to that point, you really decide, if this isn't working, I need to get rid of it. And once I get rid of that, what do I replace it with? This is called introspection. This is how we get there. We learn about who we are and we decide what doesn't work. Sometimes that's really painful. We have to let go of people, places, jobs, ideals, constructs, religions, traditions, beliefs, even. They all have to be examined, and we do that within ourselves. We give ourselves the space to do that. That's called introspection. That introspection leads to our introduction to our spiritual selves, because that's where it is inside of us. And once you get that introduction, you're open to a brand new world that is boundless. This is where unicorns live, and serendipity is the flow of your life, and where self-love is waiting for us. We're not alone. We have this energetic being inside of us that is connected to the fabric of life itself. We are supported by the universe. The universe wants us to love ourselves so we can project that love out into the world. And that love projected into the world changes everyone. It changes humanity. It rises the vibrational frequency of everyone touched by that love. Because then they turn that love inside and they create their own love, and then it goes on and on and on. Just like that old shampoo commercial, I'm gonna show my age here. I don't know what it was called, but she loved the shampoo so much that she told one person and they told one person and so on and so on and so on. It works the same way. Self-love radiates outward and touches other people. They wanna emulate that, so they create their own self-love, and it's I'm simplifying it, of course, but that's basically conceptually what happens. And that fabric of love that gets intertwined, like a net across the world changes the world. So, yeah, our lives are changed. I get a more satisfying love relationship. It's coming. That's my future. Not just more satisfying, soul satisfying. And I don't know what sex will look like. I will invent that. It'll be customized to my needs and desires, my wants, our needs and desires. It will not be dictated by you pet the certain place, you get ready for penetration, you stick it in, and sex is over. I'm sorry, but it just won't be that way. And I don't know what it'll look like yet, but it won't look like that. And not only will I be satisfied from the soul, from my core, but I am now radiating that love out into the world and it's touching everyone else. And that spreads. And that's how I know this is going to sound like I'm reaching, but please bear with me. That's how we cure hate and intolerance and fear of each other, and how we embrace diversity, and we just accept love as love, and we don't try to figure out or try to control how we love. Doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, or a woman and a woman and a man, or as long as they're consenting adults. It doesn't matter who you love as long as you love. And you'll have to forgive me, but my lawn guy is here. Yes, I'm in my home office. And this is probably a good time to stop to stop anyway, but I just want you to know that I know from my spirit guides and from my introspective work that love is much broader than we accept, and that sex can be incredible and not just a physical release and a momentary pleasure. So thank you for listening. I went on longer than I intended. I guess I need to allow more time for these. But I just wanted to share that with you after my last episode where it was a little dark. I wanted to share with you the result of that death and the excitement that I feel for my future at almost 60. So thank you for being here with me. I hope to see you again. And I just really appreciate this opportunity to speak to you. So until we speak again, thank you.